Prince of Persia is a legendary video game series dating all the way back to the 1980s, and the latest entry, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, manages to modernize a lot of its core elements while also putting a very Hollow Knight-esque spin on it all. It can also be a fairly challenging game if you crank up the difficulty, but even if you don't, there are plenty of tips and tricks that we can offer to help both survive and navigate through its expansive 2D Metroidvania-inspired world. One of the smartest innovations that Lost Crown brings to the Metroidvania genre is the addition of memory tokens. Whenever you come across a room that has an obvious path forward, but you don't have the means to reach a platform, or open a certain type of door, or clear some sort of obstacle, you can press down on the D-pad to take a screenshot, which will then drop a memory token on the map at whatever spot you're currently standing at. This is super useful for whenever you're lost, or looking to backtrack to old areas after getting a new time power. All you have to do is check the map for your memory tokens, and you can quickly see the screenshot you took, which will tell you at a glance if you're now able to traverse through an area that you were previously blocked in. Just also remember to remove your tokens after you finish using them, as they are a limited resource. Amulets are very important when it comes to keeping Sargon's strength matched with the increased difficulty of enemies as you get deeper into the game. Equip whatever amulets you want, as most are useful in their own ways. But just make sure that you remember what amulets you have equipped and make sure that you're actually making use of them. The Horned Viper amulet is super useful when you're traversing the depths, but if you're not dealing with any enemies that can poison you, it's wasting a slot. If you don't do many air combos, then you probably don't want to equip the amulet that increases your aerial damage. Most amulets provide passive buffs, but some require you to actively think about them, like Blade Dancer, which adds an extra hit to the end of your melee combo, if you time another button press right after the last hit of a combo lands. So make sure you're actually making use of those moves if you have those amulets equipped. You can launch many enemies into the air for an air combo by pressing up and the melee attack button at the same time. If you hold down the attack button, you'll follow the enemy into the air for an easy air combo. Get into the habit of doing this as often as you can, as you're harder to hit when you're in the air, and you also are able to land more hits with an air combo than you can with just your regular grounded 3-hit combo. While in the air, you can press up and melee attack again to launch them up a second time, or you can press down and attack to spike them downwards. Lost Crown has two main defensive techniques, parrying and dodging. Of the two, dodging is generally the safer method, as the timing window is far less strict, and it works on almost every type of attack, even glowing red strikes. The two main downsides to dodging, though, is that you don't gain any Athra meter when you use them, and usually the amount of punishment you're able to deliver to an enemy after a successful dodge is less than it would be compared to if you had parried the attack instead. Parries, on the other hand, are very rewarding when you land them. They reflect projectiles, cause enemies to recoil, making them vulnerable to follow-ups, add a substantial amount of Athra meter, and if you're able to parry special yellow flashing attacks, they'll even cause special execution animations on regular enemies, or deal substantial damage to bosses. But parries have three substantial drawbacks. First, the default timing window can be pretty tight. Second, if you do mistime a parry, you take extra damage. And third, if you get baited into trying to parry an unblockable red glowing attack, you can kiss a large portion of your life bar goodbye. Ultimately, parries will help you clear tough encounters faster, so if you're confident, you should definitely go for them. But if you start getting low on health, maybe consider dodging instead. Two final things to note are that in order to parry an attack, you must be facing the direction of that attack. And if you don't press the direction and you press the dodge button, you'll do a backstep that has much more invulnerability, can be repeated twice, and is generally the safest way to get far out of the way of a long-reaching enemy attack. When you first reach Mount Kof, there are a couple of things that you'll want to make sure you do before you get too deep into the game. On your first return trip to Haven, make sure you visit Kahiva, not just to upgrade your weapon, but also get her side quests. The reward is an excellent amulet called Shield of Mithra that will serve you well throughout the entirety of the game. Next, make sure you visit Artaban and do all of the combat challenges. Not only will this get you 100 time crystals for every lesson, but you'll also be rewarded with an Athra Surge if you complete all the ones available to you from the start. At some point, you'll also want to make sure to buy the Horned Viper amulet from the mage. which decreases the amount of damage you'll take from poison, which will be hugely helpful once you venture into the depths. Haven is your main hub throughout the game, and as such, it should be a frequent stop for you whenever you finish up a part of the main quest, gain a new time power, or simply when you have a large collection of time crystals to spend on upgrades. Make sure to make regular stops at Kahiva to keep your weapons upgraded and to upgrade the amulets that you're currently using, get health upgrades from the mage, hints on where to go next from Fariba, and check in with Artaban to see if he has any new combat challenges for you that utilize any of the new abilities that you've picked up. Doing this is very important to making sure that Sargon's own strength keeps on par with the increased difficulty of enemies and bosses as the game goes on. Just outside of Haven, there's an elevator that goes down to the depths, and right outside of that elevator is a door that leads to the Scrapper. He's the only shop outside of your home base of Haven, so make sure to visit him from time to time and check out what he offers. His inventory is largely made up of mostly high-risk, high-reward items, and he only takes Xerxes as currency, which are a type of coin that are found throughout the game world, usually as rewards for tough platforming challenges. As you explore through Mount Koth, you'll no doubt find prophecy jars. Every 5 you find adds to a mural in the lower city, and every time you fill in a piece of the mural, you are rewarded with either a Soma Time Petal, an ingot, a bunch of time crystals, or some other valuable item. So it's always worth making a trip back whenever you see an exclamation point above the side quest marker on the map. Athra Surges are Sargon's strongest attacks that can only be used once he's filled up a meter at the bottom of the screen by either dealing damage or parrying attacks. You'll unlock a total of 10 Athra Surges over the course of the game, but you can only equip 2 at a time. Some require only 1 stock of the Athra gauge, others take 2, and much later on, you'll come across a few very powerful techniques that require 3. If you're struggling in a boss fight, you might want to consider changing up which Athra Surges you have equipped. I would generally recommend equipping 2 level 1 surges, so you can do 2 big attacks with 2 bars instead of just 1, on top of the fact that you can also use the invulnerability of an Athra Surge as a way to defend against attacks that are otherwise very hard to avoid. That said, there's some great utility in the higher level Athra Surges, like one that costs 2 bars and helps you recover life, and another that takes 3 bars and grants a massive damage buff on your attacks. Experiment and find a loadout that suits your own playstyle. Be careful about just mashing the attack button on enemies. The third and final hit of your melee combo is committal, which means you cannot cancel it with a parry or dodge. One way to keep your aggression going without committing to that big hit is by using your sweep attack, which is done by holding down and pressing the melee attack button. So, for example, you could do attack, sweep, attack, attack, launcher, hold the button down, attack, attack, down attack, hold the button down. This is a pretty powerful combo that should be able to take out most enemies in one go. One of the most versatile skills in Sargon's arsenal is Shadow of the Simurgh, which is the second time power that he gets. Press a button to create a clone of Sargon that's frozen in time, in the middle of whatever action you made him do, and with another press of the same button, Sargon will teleport back to the clone and complete the action. You can use this offensively by charging an attack, creating a clone when the attack is charged, releasing the charge to send out a shockwave, then return to the clone who will have another full charge all ready to go, essentially letting you get 2 charged attacks for the price of 1. You can also use it defensively to avoid certain sweeping beam attacks that otherwise cannot be avoided by dodging or jumping. There are some pretty challenging platforming sequences in Lost Crown that require a lot of fast thinking, quick button presses, and a lot of precision. They're all very satisfying when you're able to complete them, and I would always encourage someone to do their best before trying to skip through them. But if you're struggling and not having fun, the game fortunately has a platforming assist feature in the options and accessibility menu that lets you create portals and bypass them altogether. And those are our tips to help you get started in Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Thanks for watching, and for more Prince of Persia guides, make sure to check out the IGN wiki page. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.